From quests and achievements to completely different troop mechanics, here are Clash Royale facts that only OG players remember. We all know that the max amount of elixir you can hold in Clash Royale is 10, but did you know that it actually used to be 11? Yeah, seriously. Now, don't get me wrong, the elixir bar would never actually display the number 11 next to it, but there used to be a feature in the game where Supercell would pre-generate your 11th elixir for you when your bar filled up. The thing is, you'd only actually gain access to that extra elixir if you played a card within 2.8 seconds of your bar filling up. This actually made it quite a bit easier to build up large pushes in the back, since you could, for example, place a golem when full on elixir and end up with 3 already in your bar instead of only 2. This would only work if you managed to play a card, like I said, within that 2.8 second window after filling up your elixir bar, so this feature was only utilized by players who understood it and paid attention to their elixir bar. Supercell ultimately ended up deciding that this mechanic wasn't necessarily very fair or even intended in the first place, so they did remove it from the game before 2016 was even over. Just like Clash of Clans, Clash Royale used to have achievements. These achievements would each have 3 tiers of completion, so for example, the Friend of Need achievement would give you gems and XP at 5,000 donations, 10,000 donations, and finally at 25,000 donations. Achievements were a very beloved feature that allowed players to gain more XP and gems and have more things to work towards when playing the game. I honestly have no clue why Supercell got rid of such an amazing feature, but hey, I guess we have card masteries, which are kinda similar. Before we continue, quick thanks to today's sponsor, Eldorado. If you play multiple games or just want an easier way to get what you need in-game, Eldorado is a platform where you can choose your game, pick what you're looking for, and find options through a secure and easy-to-use system. What I like is how simple the navigation is. You just go to the site, select your game, choose your platform, and browse the available options until you find something that fits what you need. They also have a reputation system for vendors and 24-hour support, which helps keep everything safe and straightforward, especially if you're new to platforms like this. If you want to check it out, head to the link at the top of the description or use my code Braindead to get an exclusive Eldorado discount. The link and code help track performance and support the channel, so make sure you use those specifically. Thanks again to Eldorado for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back into it. The Clan Chest was an event that would take place every weekend in Clash Royale. Starting on Friday and going through Sunday night, every member of the clan could collect crowns through normal battles that would then be added to the clan's crown counter. Then on Monday, depending on how many crowns the clan got over the weekend, they'd get different rewards. You could actually open the clan chest early if your clan hit the maximum number of crowns before the end of the weekend, and this chest would provide thousands of gold and hundreds of cards to every member of the clan, making it a very popular and fun feature to have in the game. Again, I have no clue why Supercell removed this feature since everybody liked it so much and it actually seemed pretty good for the game's economy. In addition to achievements, Clash Royale also used to have a quest system. This was a section on the main battle tab that you could expand to see a few daily quests. These quests were usually pretty simple, something like play an epic card 20 times in a ladder match, and completing the quest would earn you cards, XP, and quest points. Quest points would fill up a bar at the top of the screen that would allow you to open a legendary King's chest when full. This was yet another beloved and healthy feature for the game that incentivized players to play the game, but alas, Supercell decided to delete this feature with the Clan Wars 2 update in 2020. As if that update wasn't already unpopular enough, right? While a lot of features so far have been generally liked by the community, we were all glad to see this next one get removed. Some of you guys might remember that we used to have to pay 5 gold to start a match in the game. This was likely added to Clash Royale when it came out to mimic the similar feature in Clash of Clans where you have to pay gold to battle. Just like the Clash of Clans feature, the gold price to battle was very insignificant, so players really didn't see a reason why Supercell was requiring us to pay gold in the first place. Because of this, Supercell ended up getting rid of this feature after only a few months of the game being out, and I think we can all agree that this was for the best. The Bowler is a card that has certainly had its ups and downs over the years. That being said, one thing that I'm sure not too many of you remember is that the Bowler actually used to make completely different sounds to the ones he makes today. Today, the Bowler makes sounds like this.
Rolling! Rolling, strike! Bye-bye.
But what some of you might remember though is that the Bowler used to make sounds like this as well. While this isn't the only time Supercell has changed sound effects in their games, it's still quite rare, making this fact pretty cool to look back on. The Executioner has always been a strong and fun to use card in Clash Royale. While he continues to see a good amount of use today, he used to be much more powerful upon release due to a couple of unintended issues with his axe. You see, while the Executioner's axe throw has a set range, so does the axe itself. When the card was first released all those years ago, the axe had a 1-tile radius around it, meaning anything touching the tile where the axe was would take damage. Because of this range, combined with the Executioner's hit hitbox, the Executioner actually used to deal damage to any troops that were standing directly behind him as well as the ones in front. In addition, the Executioner even used to stun troops when hitting them, resetting their attacks. These issues were not only completely unintended, but they made the card extremely broken and overpowered to use, so Supercell quickly stepped in to fix these issues after catching on to what was happening, and players were very grateful. The Super Magical chest was the best chest in the game upon Clash Royale's global launch in 2016. This chest had a 50% chance of containing a legendary, and it was the main chest people would buy when using gems to upgrade their cards and get more legendaries specifically. Other than that though, this chest was quite similar to the modern Legendary King's chest, and both chests could be obtained in your normal chest cycle in addition to being purchasable in the shop with gems. The Legendary King's chest we have today does have the added option of being able to choose between 2 different cards for each rarity, but many players still say they miss the Super Magical chest and want to see it return to the game. One of the perks to using the mirror in Clash Royale is that it increases the level of the mirrored card by 1, making it possible to actually play higher level cards than actually exist in the game. For example, with level 15 being the max level in game as of the release of this video, the max level mirror will play a level 16 version of the mirrored card. But did you know that the mirror actually used to increase the level of the card by 2 levels and not just 1? Prior to April of 2022, the mirror would only increase card levels by 1, but on April 4th, Supercell released an update which raised this level increase by 1, leading players to be able to play level 16 cards, which at the time were 2 levels higher than the max level of 14. This mechanic was in the game for several months, but in September of the same year, Supercell unfortunately decided the change was too overpowered and reverted the mirror back to its former state. The mirror is actually one of my personal favorite cards to use, so I was sad to see this change reverted, but I guess it makes sense from a balancing perspective. The mirror is the only card in Clash Royale that can produce card levels higher than the maximum level in game, but this wasn't actually always the case. The Witch was one of the original 19 cards released with the game's global launch in 2016, and when the game first came out, the Witch actually used to spawn skeletons that were 1 level higher than her own level. As you can probably guess, this led to the Witch spawning skeletons that were higher than max level if the Witch herself was maxed. Supercell didn't like this, and they actually ended up lowering the spawn skeletons levels by 1 for consistency's sake in the game's very first update in January of 2016. Another card that had a very strange and overpowered feature upon the game's release was the Rage spell. When Clash Royale first launched globally, the Rage spell would actually permanently grant the Rage effect to any troops that stepped inside its radius. Yeah, you heard that right. So if a group of barbarians, for example, were to walk through the spell on their way to the opponent's princess tower, they'd actually end up staying raged up even after they left the Rage spell's radius, or even after the spell just straight up wore off. This obviously made the Rage spell way too powerful, especially for 2 elixirs, so Supercell changed this in March of 2016 so that troops that entered the Rage spell would only keep the effect for 2 seconds upon leaving the spell's radius. It's no secret that many Clash Royale cards were inspired by existing troops and buildings from Clash of Clans. The Expo is a pretty popular example of this, and since the Expo can be toggled to target both ground and air in Clash of Clans, the Expo actually had the ability to target air cards in Clash Royale too. This feature was both a blessing and a curse for the Expo, because while targeting air troops made the Expo better defensively, it made it much harder to connect with the Expo on offense, since the opponent could also use air cards to distract the Expo. Because of this, Supercell ended up removing the ability for the Expo to target air cards only 1 month after the game's release. We all know the Bandit can't take damage once she enters her dashing animation. This can be frustrating when she starts dashing right before your log or fireball connects, but the Bandit didn't always used to be this way. When the Bandit was first released, she was simply unable to be targeted by troops or defenses when dashing, rather than being invulnerable to all damage. So if you used a spell on the Bandit, you would actually be able to damage and knock her back. Supercell wanted to help out the Bandit a little bit since she was underperforming at the time, so in September of 2018, they made it so that the Bandit was completely immune to any damage during her dashing animation, including spells. Gold Rush is a feature we see from time to time in the game, where for a few days we can get a good amount of extra gold for getting crowns in the game. What many players don't know though is that Supercell used to actually run gem rushes as well in the game. These work just like the gold rushes, except instead of gold, you'd obviously be able to earn gems from getting crowns in the game. You'd usually be able to earn up to 250 gems in total from simply playing battles, which was a lot of fun and a cool way to get more gems, especially for free-to-play players. The way you'd earn the gems is by destroying your opponent's towers, and this was represented visually with gems appearing on the front of the towers. Supercell ended up removing Gem Rush from the game, and it isn't known why, but it's most likely because Supercell wasn't making enough money since players were getting a lot of gems for free. Any of you who've played Clash Royale since the beginning will remember that the Princess and Ice Wizard were the very first 2 legendaries added to the game. These cards were added before Clash Royale's leveling system was standardized like it is today, so all cards started at level 1. That being said, you'd assume legendary cards maxed out at level 5 since that would require 20 legendary cards to upgrade to that level. That's actually not the case though, as Supercell originally released these 2 cards with the ability to be upgraded to level 6 for 50 legendary cards. Legendary odds were much worse back then than they are today, so players would have needed to spend tens of thousands of dollars to actually upgrade their legendaries to level 6. For this reason, only a handful of players actually ever had level 6 legendaries, and when Supercell got rid of the 6th level, players were refunded, in many cases getting hundreds of thousands of gems back from from Supercell. My friend Glix actually did a whole video all about this item on our list, so go ahead and check out his video after you finish this one. Link is in the description below. Emotes are one of Clash Royale's most iconic features, and you either love them or you hate them. While today we have the option to simply mute the emotes so we don't see what our opponent has to say, this wasn't always the case. Until September of 2016, there was no option to mute emotes, which was a lot of fun in my opinion because you knew your opponent was actually seeing what you were saying, but some people got their feelings hurt and petitioned Supercell to add a mute feature, so they unfortunately did. The Inferno Dragon will reset its ramp up damage upon breaking the shield of a card such as the Dark Prince or the Guards. When the Inferno Dragon was first released, its Inferno Beam would actually stay ramped up upon destroying shields, which was very OP since it would just melt through a whole Dark Prince like it was nothing. At the end of 2017 though, Supercell finally fixed this issue by causing the Inferno Dragon's beam to reset upon breaking a shield, so now it has to ramp up twice to take out the Dark Prince. I've played Clash Royale since its global launch in 2016, and one thing that shocked me, no pun intended, when I came back from a 2-year hiatus from playing the game in 2020 was that the Zap wasn't nearly as powerful as it had been at the game's launch. The Zap ended up losing popularity for a number of reasons, but the biggest reason in my opinion was that the Zap used to stun for an entire second upon release, which was way more powerful than you might think. For this reason, the Zap got so much value for 2 Elixir and was used by almost everyone back in the day. Several months after the game's release though, Supercell nerfed the stun duration from 1 second all the way down to just half a second, and the usage and popularity have since fallen to much lower levels. Your opponent has left the match. This was the message that Supercell used to display on your screen if your opponent were to leave the match either by rage quitting, losing internet connection, or something similar. Getting this message was great since it was a signal that you could just spam cards at the bridge and get an easy 3-star since the opponent wasn't in the match anymore. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, Supercell ended up removing this feature a couple years after the game's release. This change was annoying, but it was most likely made so that players that lost connection would have the chance to get back into the game, hopefully without their opponent noticing, and continue on like nothing happened. Another strange mechanic that only OGs would remember is that the Sparky used to be able to be reset by being pushed back. This could be done with the Tornado, the Log, or even simply by placing another troop on top of the Sparky to nudge her out of the way. This wasn't Supercell's intention for the card, and it made it way too easy to counter the Sparky, so once they caught on to what was happening, they released a fix in April of 2018 that caused the Sparky to retain her charge even after being pushed or moved. Supercell used to release cards a couple of weeks before their official release by making them playable in a special challenge and awarding them early to only the players who could get enough wins in the challenge. A good example of this was the Mega Knight, which was unlockable as of August 25th, 2017, a couple of weeks before its actual release in the Mega Knight challenge. Other cards like the Royal Ghost also went through a similar release timeline, but it looks like Supercell has unfortunately scrapped this idea for now since I haven't seen them do a card release like this for a long time now. Shortly after star levels were released, players noticed that if you upgraded your Prince to its maximum star level, it would actually make Dark Prince sounds instead of its own sounds when being played. This obviously wasn't a serious bug or issue since it didn't give anyone an advantage over other players, so Supercell simply released an optional update at the end of 2018 to fix the issue. The heal spell was a simple rare card back in the day, letting you drop a circle on the arena and restore health to your troops within that circle, just like the spell from Clash of Clans. But in 2020, Supercell decided it wasn't fun or useful enough as a spell, so they completely reworked it into the Heal Spirit, a troop that jumps into enemies, deals damage, and then heals friendly units nearby. It's one of the few times a card has been fully removed and replaced with something new, but a lot of players actually really loved the change since the Heal Spirit is considered to require more skill to use successfully than the Heal spell, while also being more powerful when used correctly. If you've been playing Clash Royale for a while, you might remember that your crown towers used to be defended by basic archers. That all changed when the Tower Princess was introduced, replacing the archer entirely and giving towers a new look and a stronger defensive identity. This was one of the biggest cosmetic changes to the core gameplay everyone sees every match, and it opened the door for Supercell to add even more tower troops later like the Cannoneer and Royal Chef. The Furnace has gone through plenty of balance changes over the years, but nothing as big as when it was recently reworked into a troop instead of just a building. Instead of sitting passively in one spot like the Goblin Hut, the Furnace became a moving card with troop stats, making it feel like an entirely new unit rather than the old spawner. To make things even more exciting, the Furnace was also given its own evolution the same season, but players weren't very impressed by this since all it does is spawn fire spirits faster than the normal version as far as we can tell, so that wasn't the best. While many players disliked the change and want the old Furnace back, many others were happy to see the old Furnace removed and think it's more versatile and fun to use in its new troop form. Ever since Clash Royale was released in 2016, players asked Supercell to add clan wars like how Clash of Clans had them. Supercell eventually did this and players were very happy to say the least. But the system was eventually removed and replaced with Clan Wars 2, which completely changed how Clan Wars worked. Instead of boat battles and the old system of card collection, the rework created new mechanics, progression rules, and rewards, redefining how clan competition worked for years. To be honest, most people don't like the new Clan Wars, and I personally don't really ever attack in war as I don't find it very fun or rewarding. But hey, maybe they'll make Clan Wars 3 and it'll be better. Another feature that has undergone many changes over the years is the Season Shop. To be more precise, Supercell has never seemed to be able to decide on a set system for in-game currency in the game, with them adding and sometimes removing things like star points, season tokens, banner tokens, wild cards, elite wild cards, and more. Every time the current Clash Royale economy system gets too confusing, Supercell ends up reworking or changing things to try and simplify it, but it seems like only a matter of time until they just uproot it all and start with something fresh again. One big example of this was when the season shop was added in 2023, which replaced older systems of obtaining rewards with a rotating shop that refreshed each season, giving players more flexibility in how they spend their tokens. It turned seasonal rewards into something customizable instead of fixed, and a lot of players liked it, aside from the seemingly unnecessary addition of a new currency called season tokens that weren't super easy to understand for some. All that being said, the season shop only lasted for about 2 years before being removed just a couple of months ago. The deck builder tool was a feature that allowed players to more easily test, copy, and build decks. Specifically, the deck builder tool allowed players to add one or more cards to a deck and then click on this icon in the deck tab, which would then show popular decks using that card or cards. This feature was super useful, but I guess Supercell decided not enough people used it since they ended up quietly deleting it in 2024. This left many players wishing it would return since it was one of the more helpful tools for experimenting with strategies, but it doesn't look like we'll ever be getting that feature back at the moment. At launch, the Skeletons card spawned 4 skeletons for 1 elixir. This made Larry one of the most popular cards in the game since the 4 skeletons provided a ton of distracting and cycling value all in one card. Over time though, Supercell realized that they should probably remove one of the skeletons to keep the card more balanced, and so that's what they eventually did in 2017, less than a year after the game's release. Interestingly enough, when the evolved skeletons came out in 2023, the 4th Larry was back, and this helped make the evolution a bit stronger than it would have been with 3. But as with all good things in this game apparently, Supercell removed the 4th skeleton nearly a year ago, leaving both the normal and evolved skeletons at only 3 units. The cannon cart was added to the game with a shield mechanic like the Dark Prince, where once the shield was broken, it would transform into a stationary cannon. This was reworked years later into a single health pool, meaning it no longer functioned like a 2-phase card. This seems like a pretty pointless change at first, but it means that the cannon cart will now be completely destroyed by cards like the rocket, rather than having the shield soak up the hit and then still living on as a building. This change actually drastically altered the way that players have both used and countered the card ever since. Profile pages within Clash Royale were always kind of an eyesore since the game's release in 2016. There was really no customizability, no clear design, and a lack of any distinction or flashy visuals. That all changed in 2023 when Supercell completely overhauled how you show off your account by adding badges, banners, and other profile revamps to the game, replacing the old bare-bones profile page with something much more customizable and unique. This change gave players new ways to flex achievements, card preferences, personality, and more, and overall made the game look and feel much better to play. Something newer players may not realize is that we didn't always have these high-quality card renders on the card information screens. The card info screens used to just display the basic stats, a short description of the card, and an image of the card itself, not the troop or spell that it represented. That all changed when in April of 2022, Supercell added the first batch of these polished 3D renders of each troop or spell to the card info screens. When Supercell updated them to feature card renders, it completely changed how players saw the details of each card, making the collection feel much more alive and helping the game to feel more premium and well-crafted in general. The Path of Legends was introduced in 2022 as a competitive ladder separate from Trophy Road, but this feature is actually one of those that has been added, adjusted, and even removed at different times throughout the game's history. The feature was overall pretty good and functioned as it should have, with there being many different ranks to reach within the ladder, and after achieving the top rank, players could simply push for the highest possible trophies they could achieve. For whatever reason though, Supercell decided a few months ago to remove this feature altogether without warning and replace this system by just adding more arenas to Trophy Road and adding a ranked system that only unlocks each season after reaching 15,000 trophies. Let me know in the comments if you like this system better or if they should have kept Path of Legends in the game. The mirror card has always been a unique and often fun card to use in the game, but for a short time it was actually overpowered in a very strange way. Instead of leveling up a card by 1 level, Supercell made a change a few years back to where the mirror would actually upgrade your card's level by 2. This meant that max level cards, level 14 at the time, would be played as level 16 with the mirror, or for context, the equivalent of a level 17 card today. This was a lot of fun, but as you can imagine, those super high level cards were maybe just a bit too powerful. As a result, the mirror was eventually nerfed back to just 1 level, but for a brief period, mirror created some seriously crazy interactions in games. Originally, each rarity in the game had different maximum levels, with all rarities starting at level 1 and the higher rarities maxing out at lower and lower levels as you went up in rarity. This was confusing for players since it wasn't very intuitive to compare card levels across rarities and judge how good or impressive a certain card level was. As a result, Supercell reworked the entire system so that level 13 became the max for all cards at the time, no matter the rarity. This was a welcome change as it made it more clear that higher rarity cards were unlocked at a point where they were already viable to use in games instead of at the weak state of a level single one common card. This change overall simplified progression and made the game feel more consistent as a whole. Another big change in Clash Royale was the removal of the trophy reset above 5,000 trophies. In the past, at the end of each season, you would lose a portion of your trophies if you were above 5,000 when the season finished. Players didn't like this because it felt like there was no long-term progress in the game and you would always just be reset after pushing all season. When Supercell got rid of this feature, high-level players could finally push their records without worrying about losing so much progress each month, which helped the game out a lot. Interestingly, with the re-addition of trophy resets in the last month or two, this same problem has sort of been reintroduced. Another crazy and impactful change was when Supercell made the rage spell deal damage in 2024. The rage spell used to simply increase troop speed, attack speed, and damage, but now the spell would actually do damage itself, killing very weak troops like skeletons instantly. This change was especially crazy since it affected the Lumberjack's rage too, effectively granting him a major buff since he could now kill or damage nearby troops on death with no real downside. To make things even crazier, when the evolved Lumberjack was added last year, there was an oversight where the Lumberjack ghost could survive in any rage spell, not just the Lumberjack's rage. So as you can imagine, players quickly rushed to build ultra cheap cycle decks so that they could just get a Lumberjack ghost on the screen and then keep him alive indefinitely by spamming rage and mirrored rage spells on top. This strategy was impossible to defend and led to some funny, albeit frustrating games. Luckily, this has since been fixed and all is now right with the world. If you go to statsroyale.com and type in your player tag, you'll be able to see the next few chests in your cycle, as well as how close you are to getting big chests like the Royal Wild chest and the Mega Lightning chest. This is very useful to get an idea of where you are in your chest cycle and see if you're close to getting a good one. Not only that, but you can also see a lot of other information about your profile, such as your total donations, wins, and more. So click the link in the description or go to statsroyale.com after you finish the video to check out your profile. The Clash Royale arena may look symmetrical, but it's actually not. You see, due to small differences in the arena depending on which side you're on, some troop interactions can be different from game to game. When you get matched up for a game in Clash Royale, you're either assigned to true red or true blue depending on what side of the arena you're on. This is unfortunately random and there's no way you can choose for yourself. A good example of the differences this causes is when you use your goblin drill, as the drill will land in a different spot depending on which color you are. This is a very small difference that most players won't notice, but it is a crazy detail that I'm surprised the devs haven't patched yet. There are so many banners and badges in Clash Royale nowadays, but did you know that there's actually a secret banner that almost nobody actually has? During the release of the Book of Clash series in 2023, Supercell made a secret link that you could follow to claim a banner featuring the Hog Rider and Super Hog Rider from the book series. This exclusive offer didn't last long, and many players didn't find out about it until it was too late. So if you see someone out there with this banner when playing, make sure to send them a cool emote to pay your respects. Every card in Clash Royale can be played across any game mode of your choice, or at least that's what you probably think, but you've been lied to. The Baby Goblin's Tower Troop is actually the only card in the entire game that can only be played in one game mode, which is the Goblin Queen's Journey. Even the other Goblin cards that came out with the Goblin Queen's Journey, such as the Goblin Demolisher, have since been allowed to be used in ladder games, Trophy Road, and even challenges, but the Baby Goblins are still banned. Most people think the Monk card can reflect any projectile in the game. Well, that's not actually true. The Ice Spirit, Fire Spirit, Heal Spirit, and Electro Spirit are all technically actually considered projectiles in the game's code once they've jumped to perform their attack. While that is true, the Monk will not reflect them if they jump at him during his ability. If Supercell treated the spirits like other spells, you'd expect them to be shot back to the opponent's tower in this case. This doesn't happen though, which is unfortunate because it would be funny to see some cursed interactions like a Heal Spirit healing a tower if this actually worked. We all know that scrolling up on the Path of Legends will bring us to the leaderboard section at the very top, which shows the top 3 players in the game at a given time. But if you've ever scrolled up even further, you may have noticed a sneaky little goblin hiding in the top right corner. It takes a little bit of practice to do this since your phone will automatically snap down to the next screen if you let go, but give it a try next time you're playing. And hey, speaking of that goblin, he actually told me he wants you to subscribe to the channel, so maybe consider doing that. There is no Book of Champions in the game. There is a book for every other rarity in the game, including commons, rares, epics, and legendaries. So why isn't there a Book of Champions? Well, there is one book in the game that can be used to upgrade your champions, and that's the Book of Books, which used to be available every single month in the past Royale for only $4.99 a couple years back. Unfortunately, this book can now only be obtained from lucky drops with an extremely rare chance of that happening, or by spending real money in the shops when it's available. So if you ever get one of these books, make sure and hold on to it, and don't you dare waste it on a different rarity unless your champions are already maxed out. The Tombstone and the Furnace were both inspired by obstacles from Clash of Clans. We'd like to think the devs spend a lot of time brainstorming and coming up with brand new ideas for all the cards in Clash Royale. And while they usually do, sometimes they simply just copy and paste from another Supercell game. For example, the Halloween Headstone from 2014 in Clash of Clans looks eerily similar to the Tombstone, which was one of the first cards added to Clash Royale back in 2017. The devs actually got the idea for the Furnace in the exact same way, as there used to be a Clash of Clans obstacle for Halloween of 2015 that it looked like a cauldron with purple liquid inside. That might just sound familiar because this design ended up being copied over and changed a little bit to create the furnace that we all know and love today. I wonder if the devs will do this with any other obstacles in the future. Almost every single troop card in Clash Royale has its very own emote. Some of them have multiple, and even the evolutions get a few emotes of their own each month as they're released. That being said, there isn't a single spell card in the game today that has its own emote. At least that used to be the case until a few months ago when Supercell added the Evolve Zap to the game, which came with this exclusive emote that you see on screen now, showing the spell being used on the king. Because of this, Supercell will likely add emotes for the other spells too once they get evolutions of their own. We all know it can be easy to activate your king tower by placing a card in the middle against your opponent's firecracker, since the backsplash damage will end up hitting your king. But what most people don't realize is that interactions like this are way easier to pull off in the 2v2 game mode, as the firecracker, for example, will activate your king tower all on its own by simply shooting at one of your towers, since everything's more scrunched together. So next time you see a firecracker come across the bridge in a 2v2 match, make sure to ignore it and just hope and pray that your opponent ignores it too so you can get that free activation. Speaking of other game modes, I can't be the only one that gets mad at the Goblin referee in the touchdown game mode. His whistle can be annoying, especially when your opponent barely scored a touchdown on you the round before, so if you've ever wanted to take him out, you're not alone. Well, you'll be happy to find out that you can take him out. The timing isn't always easy, but with some practice, you can actually hit him with a spell as he's running off the field and he will go down. Kind of a waste of elixir if you ask me, but sometimes you just have to do it. When star levels were first released in Clash Royale, players soon noticed that a lot of the golden skins were references to different building and troop levels in Clash of Clans. For example, once you unlock the second star level on your Inferno Tower, it gains these spikes on the side, which look just like the level 3 Inferno Tower in Clash of Clans. Another example of this is the second star level for the hidden Tesla, which features the signature golden coil from the level 6 Tesla in Clash of Clans. These aren't the only examples though, as we see a similar story with the minions, goblins, and others. Clash Royale has several hidden Easter eggs in it that reference another Supercell game called Brawl Stars. The most obvious ones come from Electro Valley, which is the 11th arena on Trophy Road. This arena's scenery features a cactus that is a reference to Spike from Brawl Stars, as well as the Brawl Stars logo and a small star on the bottom right corner. The references don't stop there though, as there is a message that you can actually sometimes get on the loading screen which says that there are tales of a mechanical wizard from a distant land. This message is a reference to Wizard Barley, another character from Brawl Stars. Brawl Stars isn't the only game that's referenced in Clash Royale though, as the Barbarian Bowl arena is pretty much completely pulled from Clash of Clans. As you can see, the obstacles, decorations, barracks, and pretty much everything else is directly copied over from Clash of Clans, which makes sense since most of the cards in the game are also based on Clash of Clans troops since the game came out first. The lucky drops were recently reworked to include 4 different types, with 1 star being a common drop, 2 stars for rare, 3 stars for epic, and 4 for legendary. But in extremely rare cases, the drop can be upgraded to have a 5th star, which is a champion drop, giving you extremely valuable rewards. I've only seen one of these so far, even though I opened several drops every single day, and it actually ended up giving me a book of books, which is equivalent to $20 of real money. With how crowded the shop tab has gotten over the years, it can be annoying to scroll all the way to the bottom to get free rewards or enter a creator code. Lucky for you, if you tap the shop icon again, it'll cycle between the different sections of the shop, allowing you to navigate to the item you're looking for in a matter of seconds. Where's this tip been all my life? Clash Royale used to have a hidden feature that you could only see while editing your deck in Trophy Road. This feature would allow you to generate new decks using a few cards of your choice as a base. This feature was awesome for finding out new and exciting decks to try out, but unfortunately Supercell decided to remove this feature only a couple of weeks ago. Only about 5% of you watching this video right now are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoyed the video or maybe learned something new, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you won't miss another upload.